Ms. Foster, you say getting pregnant at the age of 17 pushed you into adulthood sooner than you expected. You claim Mr. Durden is denying your 15-month-old son, Ian Durden Jr. You are asking the court to order a paternity test so you can prove he is the father because you're struggling financially to make it on your own.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Durden, you say the court should not order a DNA test because you are 100% sure that you are not Ian Jr.'s father and you have proof. So, Ms. Foster, has Mr. Durden contributed anything at all for the baby?
No, Your Honor, he has not. I'm a single parent. Maybe once a pair of shoes when he was a little baby, but other than that, I pay for all the expenses, shoes, clothes, car seat, outings, anything you can think of, pretty much done by myself.
And so, Mr. Durden, you haven't helped at all?
No, I haven't. And the simple fact because I haven't helped because I don't want to get too attached to a baby that's not mine.
He has your name.
Yeah, Your Honor, I agree with that. And the reason because he has my name is because I was kind of like pushed to sign the birth certificate.
No, that is not true. We used to talk all the time about, if we have children, like I want my son to have my name.
I want to have my son to have my name.
Your Honor, he is definitely the father of this child, no doubt.
And you say you're struggling to make ends meet, and that's why you're asking this court to order a paternity test, and you also need help.
Yes. Like, my days are long. I call for the babysitter comes, I get ready for work, wait for the bus to come, get on the bus, go to work, come home, late nights, he sleeps most of the time, so I don't even get to spend time with him when I get home. It's sickening to even sit here and have to go through this. He's not someone I just had a one-night stand with. We were in a relationship.
You submitted to the court your financial statements that outline how much money it's costing you to raise Ian pretty much by yourself.
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
You say your expenses, just for you, $750. That's food, getting back and forth to work, etc. For the baby, you're spending about $1,535 a month in diapers, clothes, food, etc. for the baby.
Right, yes, Your Honor.
So that totals $2,285,
yes,
which leaves you in the negative every month. $637.
Yes.
So you're going under, and you're going under fast.
Very. And it's just like I wouldn't even have to be in the negatives if I had a sister.
So you also submitted to the court that if Mr. Durden contributed financially monthly, just pretty much $750 for you, $767.50, which would be his contribution, you would have about $130 left over.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Durden, I mean, the numbers don't lie. Without your contribution, this young woman she's sinking financially, trying to take care of this child.
I understand that she is.
And you admit you have not participated financially to this point.
Yes, and the reason because every time we had sex, I used condoms.
And that is not true. And I have proof of that not being true.
And that's why you're saying, Mr. Durden, the court should not order a paternity test. There's no need because you say you used a condom every single time.
Exactly, because I spent my money on condoms.
So, yeah, clearly on condoms, but not on the baby. That's named after you.
It's not my baby. She didn't even let me know she went to the doctor.
That does not matter. I wanted to make sure that I was pregnant before I bring it to him. Nobody wants to just I'm pregnant.
And even if that is the case,
sure. If it's not the case, we did use condoms sometimes. Not all the time, not 100% of the time. No, that's not true. Me and Ian broke up. After that, he wanted to talk. He called me to a restaurant. We sat down and we talked for him. He just kept eyeing my phone. So when he was on my phone, he took it, he ran in the bathroom with it, read some text messages that were between me and a guy that
saw a picture.
We were talking on social media. We were on a break. Me and Ian were not together. He was someone who was comforting me at the time. It was not anything. We never had sex or anything like that.
Mr. Durden, what did you see on the phone?
I just saw messages with her. And when I saw that, I saw a picture too, actually. She took a selfie with a guy in a car, and it was the guy who took her to the doctor for the sonogram of the baby.
Okay.
Oh, so wait, there was another guy at your sonogram?
He was there when he was not.
But if that's my child, You would be willing to let me know things before you take action.
He wanted nothing to do with me. Like, he ignored me. When I was pregnant the entire time, I barely spoke to him. So it's just like somebody was there when you were not. I wasn't having sex with him. He wasn't my boyfriend. He was just there when you weren't.
That's
and that night,
excuse.
that same night that he took my phone and ran with it, you know, I finally got him to come to the house so I can just sit down and talk to him. He didn't want to talk. He didn't want to have sex, so we did. And it was without a condom. And I believe that's the night that my son was conceived.
So this is what you believe is the conception night when you all had
Yes, Your Honor.
the makeup sex, pretty much.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you did not use protection?
No.
Do you remember that night, Mr. Durden?
Not quite. I do not remember the night, but I do remember buying condoms because I'm spending.
Well, you didn't use.
I'm spending my money on
Right, it's
condoms.
one thing to buy them, it's another thing to actually use them. If you want more episodes of Paternity Court, make sure to subscribe and click on the notification bell. Mr. Durden, you said you signed the birth certificate.
Yes, Your Honor.
The child's named after you. Why did you sign
And
the
it
birth
was a
certificate?
problem with the child being named after me. She didn't want the child to be named after me.
So you lobbied for that?
It took her mother and I think one of her friends to tell her it's the right thing to do if the baby's his.
But I'm confused. You say this child is not yours and you have proof, so I don't even have to order a paternity test.
When we was in the hospital room, I didn't really want to embarrass her in front of her mom and her sisters and stuff.
But nobody forced you to sign anything. He didn't have to sign a birth certificate. He claimed
She
the
was
child
crying.
He claimed the child was not his. Tears or no tears. It's just like nobody forced you to do anything. You signed it because you wanted to.
The reason I come to the hospital because I wanted to try to be a man.
You left as a little boy.
I didn't want to get too attached to this child because in my head, this child is not mine. I know for a fact this child is not mine. Condoms are 98% sure.
Well, we are at the 2% because,
I mean, let's be honest. They're not 100% effective. And my trouble with your argument here today is that you say on the one hand, there's no way in the world you could be this child's father. On the other hand, you're saying your mother and everybody convinced her to name the child after you. And you signed the birth certificate. I'm trying to give you the opportunity to prove to me why it is absolutely unnecessary for me to order a test, but the more you testify, the more obvious it is to me that a test is needed. Now, you say you're 100% sure. Besides the condoms and the fact that you buy them and you buy them and you buy them, I get that. What else? How is it you know for certain this is not your child?
Because, Your Honor, the reason I know this is not my child is because I remember one time at school, we didn't go to the same school. So it's kind of hard to trust somebody that's not you. I don't even see her every day. So I had a phone call, one afternoon when we got out of school, I had a phone call from a friend. He was telling me that he saw Ivy with someone else.
I have friends, like, people see me with
Nah,
people all the time.
it wasn't that type of friend at all. It wasn't that type of friend. It was the type of friend you flirt with. It was the type of friend that, oh, your boyfriend is not around, so let me do this.
I never flirted with anybody, never had sex with anybody else. Ian is the one and only person that I've ever had sex with.
That's a lie.
So it's just like, how can you prove that? How can you prove that? I have never had sex with anybody else. It was my first and my last. Sitting here fighting who's the baby's fault, there is no other person that could be. The child looks just like him.
That child don't look like me.
Well, I have a picture of Ian Sr. when he was a baby.
I'd like to see this evidence, please. You submitted pictures to the court. One is Ian Jr. and the other is Mr. Durden as a child.
The exact same eyes, exact same complexion. If you were to remove the names, you would not know who was who.
Mr. Durden, do you see a resemblance?
No, I don't.
You don't?
I have evidence right here that's saying the safety of protection of condoms.
You are doing a condom ad today in this court.
Because
And listen, I applaud you for wearing them and practicing safe sex, I do. But there is that 2%.
not in
You brought a witness, I'd like to hear from her. Ms. Jones, what do you know about this situation?
Well, this is my brother, Mr. Durden, and he's like my best friend. And one day we had a talk about Miss Foster and the baby, and he stated that she's pregnant. Like, I didn't even know they was having intercourse because they so young, they kids. So he also said that she cheated on him with her best friend, and her best friend looked exactly like my brother.
Really?
They can go for twins.
It was the boy she took a selfie with who took her to the doctor and she didn't let me know nothing about.
That's why I have my doubts too, because if they use condoms and she cheated on him around the time she conceived the baby, so it's a possibility that he can be the father also, because
Right.
they look exactly alike.
That's what's going on in your mind.
And then it's crazy because his family was at work when they made sure my brother came down there to the hospital to sign a birth certificate. Basically, they forced him to sign a birth certificate when she
had no
she
force.
know that he is not the father of that baby.
He is
she
a
had
grown
sex with
man.
another
At the time, Ian was 18 when he signed the birth certificate. Nobody can force anyone
But-
to sign any legal documents if they do not want to.
But at the same
He had
time,
a choice.
That's what happens.
He
when
made the
kids
choice.
Having kids, they go through things like this.
Let's get down to the bottom line. The stakes are really high here because if this court does not order a paternity test, Mr. Durden's on the birth certificate. You understand this. You're standing here today saying, we don't need to have a test, that's not my child, but you are that child's legal father because you signed your name on the birth certificate. So, by not wanting a paternity test, you're basically saying, this is not my child, but I agree to be financially responsible for him for the rest of his life till he's 18 years old.
And I first got to the hospital. I went there by myself. I talked to my mom. My mom was like, you need to do the right thing. So when I went to the hospital by myself, I saw that she was with her mother and her sister. And when I got there, I first held the baby as the picture you saw before. And when I held the baby, I thought to myself, this baby cannot be mine. It was kind of hard. I wasn't ready to be a father at all. I felt like I was holding a friend's child. And her family stepped out and the doctor came back in with the birth certificate. And I was sitting there with Ivy. I was like, should I put my name on this? And she was like, why not? She was even tearing up at the time.
Then you make the decision, I'm going to sign the birth certificate.
And the reason why I made the decision, I signed the birth certificate because I didn't really want to embarrass her in front of her family.
It's embarrassment. You coming
it's
up
like
here.
A move needed to be made. So I said, what the heck, man? Like, just, just put the ink on there.
Well, you understand that that's not getting it over with, that's getting it started. You're 19. You're 19 years old, but you have to understand, signing a birth certificate isn't some arbitrary execution of, you are saying I am the legal father of this child. I'm taking responsibility for this child. I am acknowledging that this is my child and I will take care of this child. Do you know you were saying that?
At the time, I did not understand that.
Well, you still don't understand it if you're in here saying that you don't want a paternity test. You need to be saying, please. At the end of the day, this court's decision is going to be as to what's in the best interest of this child. And in light of the testimony I've heard thus far, it is obvious to me that it is necessary and imperative to order a paternity test. I want you two to leave here, submit to the testing immediately, and we will return to this courtroom for the results. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Court is adjourned. We're back in session in the case of Foster versus Durden. In our last session, you were ordered to submit to paternity testing, which you have, and we have the results here today. Before we go to the results, though, have you all had time to think about your positions? Are you still believing, Ms. Foster, that unequivocally, Mr. Durden is the biological father of your son?
Yes, Your Honor. And
how about you, Mr. Durden? You first said that there was absolutely no way. No way.
I still feel like that, Your Honor. 100% this is not my baby.
Jerome, let's go to the results.
Okay.
These results were prepared by DNA Diagnostics and they read as follows. In the case of Foster versus Durden, when it comes to 15-month-old Ian Durden Jr., it has been determined by this court, Mr. Durden, you are the father. Mr. Johnson, you say the defendant, Mrs. Carr, has been playing an emotional DNA game with you over her daughter's paternity for the past 18 years. You've brought her to court to finally end this game and prove you are not her daughter's biological father. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, Your Honor.
Mrs. Carr, you say that Mr. Johnson has been dodging a DNA test and his responsibilities as a father since the day you told him you were pregnant. You claim the only reason he is denying her is because you are married and will no longer sleep with him. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Johnson, what upsets you the most about this?
The lies, the up and down roller coaster. 1 minute I'm not her father, the next minute I am. It's been a burden with this paternity, you know.
Ms. Carr, you say this is not true, what he's saying.
Your Honor, Mr. Johnson has always acknowledged my daughter, and he has always attempted to be in her
Your
life.
Honor, that's incorrect. When her daughter was first born, her father came to my house, sat me down on my couch, and said that they had a DNA test with another man, and I was not the father. He was the father.
Take me back to the nature of this relationship. You all used to be boyfriend and girlfriend?
No, ma'am. My uncle married her auntie.
Okay.
And they adopted her. I used to go over their house and help him out, like cutting grass and things of that nature, and I would stay the night, and they would allow us to sleep in the same room. We had sex one time.
Okay.
One time. It was a lot of touchy-feely before, and the one time we had sex, it was, you know, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
It's not true.
Yeah.
Well, do you agree that you had sex with him just one time?
I agree that we had sex on multiple times. We have had sex more
And at
than
some
one
point
time.
you realized you pregnant?
Yes, ma'am. At the time I was young, I was just coming on my menstrual, so this was still new to me. So it was brought to my attention that my menstrual was late or it had not come on when it was supposed to. So I was taken to the doctor and later on determined I was pregnant. I then called Mr. Johnson and told Mr. Johnson that I was pregnant. And Mr. Johnson's response was, I'm going to Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, right, I was moving back to Dayton, Ohio at this particular time. Family members were there. It was an emotional day, but she gave me a call. I'm pregnant. Do you think it's yours? Wait, do I think it's mine? Do you think it's mine is the question. You know what I'm saying?
We never
As she
had the
called.
conversation about, do you think it's yours? It was just, I'm moving to Ohio. And
Your
that
Honor, I
was the end
remember
of the
this conversation verbatim. You hear me?
So,
Like, this is something I cannot forget. Well, I remember the whole day like it was yesterday, crying and snotting. I told my family member after I got off the phone with Miss Carr, I could have a baby on the way.
Your Honor, nobody else in the family knew about him being a possibility until I had her on the delivery table. That's when I told my mom.
and then once you had the baby, what did you do? Did you call him back and try
I
to
did not call him. I did not pursue him. I had a boyfriend at the time. And
So
Mr.
they
Johnson
thought
was aware
the
of my boyfriend.
Was the father
the
of
whole
the
time.
child.
He was
All
Her
right.
dad came to my house and told me they got a DNA test with somebody else. So I moved on with my life. What else am I supposed to do? The head of your household comes
No,
to
ma'am.
me
That's-
and tell me
that's not true.
that, you know what I'm saying? Y'all got a DNA
That's
with
not
test.
true.
What am I go
Okay,
on.
okay, so let me understand this. At that time, you had a boyfriend.
I did tell him. I pursued it with him, and it went nowhere.
When you say you pursued it with him,
Right.
what do you
When
mean?
you pursued it with the other guy, what did that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean specifically?
She told him he was the father. That's why they came to my house 2 years later and told me they had a DNA test with
there was
another
no
guy.
DNA test.
So
there
when
was never
you
a DNA
found
test.
out that you were pregnant, you told
Told-
Mr. Johnson and you told
I
the
did.
boyfriend.
Yes, ma'am. I
Miss-
left that part out. I apologize.
Okay,
Both.
now this is
Yeah,
coming
that-
together.
oh.
So you got the boyfriend and you told both.
I told
Mr.
both.
Johnson said, I'm moving away. So at that point, when the baby was born, you still had your boyfriend, right?
There was no one involved. No one. No one's name went on her
So
birth
how did he
certificate.
get excluded from the equation?
No one was involved. It was
And you
just
never
my
did a
parents.
DNA test with the ex-boyfriend?
We had a DNA test within the last 3 years.
Wow.
Me and the other
Wow.
father.
And you did not know this, Mr.
No,
Johnson?
ma'am, I didn't.
Mr. Johnson
ma'am.
has been active in her life periodically.
At one point in time, after her father comes to my house and said that I wasn't the father, I move on with my life. Maybe about 5, 6 years later, I had my first daughter. They see how I'm interacting with her, and so I guess they say, this is your daughter now.
No, this is not true.
Let me tell you, I seen the daughter in a grocery store. She runs up to me. She run up to me, like, Daddy. I'm shocked at the moment, like, what the, wait a minute, Daddy. When I tell you I'm looking for cameras to pop out, I thought I was on a prank show or something. Like,
How old is she?
she's about 5 or 6 at this time.
Your Honor, this is my first time ever hearing this story about the grocery store.
Okay, so
But
let's hear it.
She run up to me like, Daddy, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, okay. Hey, I want to say I'm not your daddy, but I can't tell this little girl this, you know what I'm saying? I recognize the family members, so I just assumed this was
That it was
Miss
her.
May. But I'm confused as to why she's calling me daddy. So I'm asking for a DNA test. Like, no, you can't just say that she's my daughter without me getting a DNA test.
So what happened when you requested the DNA test after the run-in at the grocery store, Mr. Johnson?
It never happened. So about 3 to 4 years later, I move in with a family member that they are close to. And Miss May is constantly interacting with these family members. So she comes to the family member's house, and like, your daughter is coming. Like, this is not my daughter.
That is untrue.
Can I finish my story? I said, I need a DNA test.
Cut me
And
off.
all the family like, no, she's yours. You don't need to get a DNA test. And she looked like another family member when she was younger. And so I'm just full of
Honor, that's not
emotion.
true.
And
True.
so against my better judgment, even without the DNA test, I started accepting Miss May as my child. I know that I need to get this DNA test based on what they told me in the past. I'm full-blown father now. Birthday parties, clothes, school clothes. Your Honor, I donated plasma to have Miss May a Hannah Montana birthday party.
How old was Amber at this point?
This was her 9th birthday, her 10th birthday. I'm full-blown father. You know what I'm
Your
saying? I'm
Honor, he
full-blown
never
father. I'm
communicated
school
with me
clothes,
about
shoes,
this. Come on,
everything.
man. Gotta
So,
So
maybe like
if you're a full-blown father and you're throwing birthday parties, what brings you to court today? You still have a
I
doubt?
got a phone call about a year or 2 later requesting the DNA test.
It's not
Why?
true, Your Honor.
Now, after I'm full-blown father mode, why get a DNA test now? Why not when I
Well,
asked
I
for
want
one?
the answers to both of those questions. Number one, I want the answer to why, after all that time, he's doing birthdays, he's showing up, he's a daddy.
He's
Why
not communicating
the
with
DNA?
me. Again, he's not communicating with me, and I always find out about things after the fact.
And so you didn't have any idea all this time that Mr. Johnson had been stepping up and trying to be a father to your daughter?
That is false.
No, man.
At that
He was
point in
not
time, I
stepping
stepped
up
up.
the way he's been.
She had
saying.
he did one birthday party.
Yes,
One.
facts.
How old she is?
Facts.
One.
This is
Okay.
facts. Yes,
You're
one
right.
birthday. And who are you?
Four.
Okay. I don't even know. I've never seen this man a day in my life. You know what I'm saying? Who are you?
All right. You know, there has been a lot of talk about Amber, and I personally am ready to meet her because I want to ask her myself
Yeah.
what is going on. Jerome, will you please escort Ms. May into the courtroom?
Yes.
Hi, Amber.
Hello, Your Honor.
What memories do you have of Mr. Johnson being in your life?
Memories with Mr. Johnson. My 10th birthday, he threw me a party at the water park. I remember that. And then there was the time from summer after 5th grade. I remember that day because he made me stay in the house while all my cousins playing outside.
There was a lot of boys out there. She was the only girl.
I was not.
And so, when's the last time you saw Mr. Johnson?
Last time I saw Mr. Johnson was the 5th grade summer. It was probably around 2010.
So you have not seen her or laid eyes on her?
No, ma'am, and she's extremely beautiful.
Yes. Ms. May, what was your understanding as it related to your paternity? What were you told?
I was told by family members that he was my father, and they would show me pictures of him, and they was like, "Oh, you look just like him." And so I was like, "Okay, that's my dad." And growing up, my mother had told me that he was a part of my life, and so I don't have that many memories with him. Like, there was this time I called him on the phone. I asked for a birthday present. He gave me a false tracking number, and we was all waiting for it. I was like so excited to get the present, and it never came. So I just forgot about it. And
did you give her a fake tracking number, Mr. Johnson?
I may have, Your Honor. At the time, I probably had got the phone call to take the DNA test, and I told Mrs. Carr that I'm not doing anything else until we get proof that this is my daughter.
We never had that conversation, Your Honor. We had a conversation when I went through the court system and pursued him for a DNA test and child support, and he sent me a text saying that it was screwed up that I did that. But this was during the same time as the tracking number and the gift that he had promised her.
So when you requested the DNA test, he never showed up?
No, he did not.
And so at that point, your desire to pursue Mr. Johnson was to collect child support?
I just wanted a DNA test once and for all so that I could quit hearing, I don't know if she's mine, or, you know,
right.
I didn't want to hear that, because one moment you're her father, the next moment you're not. It gets really confusing.
I mean, it is amazing to me how much you all were doing. You did everything but get a DNA test. I mean, everything. And now, Amber is the one who's hurting.
At the end of the day.
Thinking you're her biological father, and you only showed up for a birthday party. And I mean, Amber, what was that like?
Well, after Mr. Johnson left me, that's when the man I call my father, Mr. Carr over there, that's when he came and stepped up and took his place. And so all these years I was like, okay, so, you know, he doesn't want to spend time with me. And so I recently got in contact with him and over social media and asked, are you going to come to my graduation, or are you going to lie and say you're coming and then not show up?
Yeah. I have copies of text messages.
Jerome, let me see that, please.
This is not the whole conversation, but it's just the part that really stood out.
She said, what, you don't want to talk to your firstborn that you abandoned?
Because he asked to contact my mother. He has told me to tell my mother to call him.
And so you said, I did abandon you. I take responsibility for my actions, but it's a lot you don't know. And then Amber writes back, well, I'm of age. Please enlighten me, Brandon. And then you say, you may not be my daughter. We were supposed to get a paternity test about 4 or 5 years ago, but your mom never went through with it.
Correct.
And when you reached out, all you wanted was your biological father and the man you know to be your father figure in your life. You wanted them to be at your graduation.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Johnson, if you are her biological father, would you like to go to her graduation?
Gladly. I would love to. It's hard on her. You know what I'm saying? She's the number one being hurt out of this. You know what I'm saying? But I got feelings and emotions tied up in this as well. I done missed out on a lot. They deprived me of the chance of her falling in love with me for the first time. They deprived me of seeing her first steps.
That's not true,
They deprived me of her first birthday, father-daughter dances. They deprived me of a lot of stuff, too.
Your Honor.
You have an opportunity to tell him.
All right.
I felt like you could have got in contact with her. You could have, but you didn't try. And so that doesn't make me feel like you wanted to be with me. Look, it's over with now.
It don't have to be over
It's
with
over
if
with
you're
now.
my daughter. You know what I'm saying? We can build from now forward. You know, we can't ever get back to past. It don't have to be over if you're my daughter, Amber.
We're here to get you the answers, Amber, you deserve and you need, and we have those answers for you. Jerome? These results were prepared by DNA Diagnostics, and they read as follows. In the case of Johnson versus Carr May, when it comes to Amber May, it has been determined by this court, Mr. Johnson, you are her father.
whole time.
How do you
my
feel?
periods.
How do you feel? Absolutely, honey.
Okay. It's okay.
It's okay.
We came here for a beautiful young woman who deserves to know who her biological father is. And now we have that answer.
Yes, we do.
And I am so thankful that you have Mr. Carr in your life, and I'm so happy that your mother has been there for you. Every girl needs her daddy, and you've been blessed with two. You have two men who love you very much, and that's a beautiful thing. Mr. Johnson?
I just want to apologize to Amber first. I'm extremely sorry. I love you. I will be here for you from now on.